Well, hello. I'm Chloe Jaco. I'm Senior Vice President with CGL Companies, and I am our Director of Planning. So, seems so basic, but we do kind of have a presentation or a PowerPoint that we do use a lot of times to guide these sessions. And the sessions are anywhere from 2 to 3 hours, depending on how you organize the agenda. And I'll get into that here in this overview. But the first thing we do with the group is we always kind of state the objectives of why we're even doing this workshop. And usually it is to help kind of get a goal or a vision for the project, or to kind of come up with those statements or touchstones that we want to use a bridge for whatever our assignment is that we can bring them back to make sure we're on track. And I always do like to identify for the group right off the bat, what products are you going to get from this? You're going to get some goals or guiding principles, and you're going to get some kind of document, either a report or a memo or something that we can refer back to from the entire session. We also usually like to start it with if there has been a project mission developed for the project, like you can see here from the Berks County OR project for the new jail there. But we also like to use this because we want to reinforce whatever tools we've already created for them or whatever mission statement that we want to build off from the day's events. So we kind of have an agenda. We like to get this agenda set up. This just kind of gives you an idea of what we do. And we'll put some time parameters for it, and we'll send them a memo ahead of time as they identify the stakeholders to be included. But we always start off the introduction ground rules, try to give some impact with how the existing conditions are impacting whatever we're studying. We like to talk about precedents, or trends, kind of get them excited, kind of get them thinking out of the box. And then we go through a series of some exercises. We do some individual exercises with operational values, and then we do some group exercises around some themes. And then from that, while we're there, our team kind of works to identify these goals in real time, present them back to the group, get feedback, and that way we end kind of with having those principles before we leave the workshop. We do like to kind of start as we go through like that first one, introduction and ground rules. We usually try to add a slide in there to kind of get some context to the project of the region. This is just an interesting example for all these projects we've been doing in Pennsylvania, just kind of showing the origin of the word penitentiary because it came from that area and how we've moved, forward in thinking. And then we like to give some context of what we see going on in the industry. We've been using this word a lot, see change, doesn't matter if your views are conservative, liberal. There has definitely been a change in attitude and thinking about how to look at certain things, especially a lot of the criminal justice areas that we study, and that we need to recognize that and see how that's going to impact this project and theme. And of course, we like to set the ground rules. We usually have a fleet of people there from our side, but we really are there to listen and to help facilitate. And then we always have to set some ground rules for all of the stakeholders that are coming from the client or the surrounding community, because we want everybody to be open-minded, listen, and we want them to pay attention, try to put your cell phones away and also try to get them excited about what we're doing. And so then, you kind of set the stage and we want to start getting people talking. We want to engage the group. We usually do an exercise or go around, everybody introduce themselves, what's their role in the project, and to finish the thought. Whatever the project is, it'll be a success if what. And then someone from our team is always trying to capture those little nuggets or themes so we can feed that back to them later in the study. So that's kind of the first part of the agenda. That's the introduction and ground rules. And then we'll usually move on to the impact of what's kind of going on there, whatever it is, if it's for a facility or a system or, a county facility plan, whatever it is, we'll usually have some maps that kind of sets the stage of what they've been dealing with, just kind of summarizing the conditions. And then we want to move into, again, getting some feedback from the group, get them talking. So we'll either ask one or two exercises. We'll ask them, how does this facility or your system impact what you're trying to do? And I actually came up with a new exercise we did with our last group where we had them identify 3 things about the system or the project or the program that they'd like to keep, they'd like to toss, or they'd like to create. And we had them actually fill out some Post-it notes and put it up on some boards, just anything to kind of get them thinking about current conditions and the impact. And then that kind of moves us into the part of the presentation workshop. This is kind of where our team speaks a little bit more. We want them to be more engaged, but we have to at least give them something to open their mind with. And I've done a lot of detention and corrections lately, so this is just kind of showing you. Usually we take that precedent section and we kind of organize it by topics. You can see that for the last few presentations, we've had these topics by these 3 categories. And for each one of these little subtopics you see there, we actually prepare a slide for it. And on that slide, we usually like to give a few nuggets as like, here's a visitation, for example. What does that include? We like to show some pictures, got to have some eye candy to get people thinking about how they could be doing it differently, especially if there are some older facilities. And then we've started adding, from our last few sessions, we're trying to also add something about research-informed findings, because a lot of people ask us questions, what's the research saying, or is there a specific number or something we can quote? And so we have a lot of anecdotal information on the team, and we're trying to do a better job of gathering that together with some sources, or at least just providing what we're hearing in the industry. So once we go through all those slides, and that could be a big section depending on how many areas you have to cover, but you kind of hit it at a fast clip. You want to get to these exercises. That moves us to agenda item 4, which is typically the value section. And this is where we take the group and we do some individual exercises. We usually identify the topics, and like this is just showing you a sample for some of the detention and correction plans we've done lately. Might have different topics if it's a court or depending on the nature of the study. But we usually have it, colored Post-it notes and markers all around the tables, and we have each person fill out maybe their top 4 items. I have to love this, showing them, this is, we want to capture your nuggets of your thoughts. We don't necessarily want essays, but we want to get good information, and to kind of have them just succinctly fill out those notes. And then we'll put these categories around the room on big sheets of paper, on boards, and we have them get up. You want to get people moving, and they go put those notes in which category they feel is most appropriate. So I can't say how important this is. You need to have your team there, take pictures, capture everything going on, show the synergy, the energy, people moving around, and it also helps for the products we create. And then we move into like a group exercise. We do the individual, then we do a group. This is one where we took the 3 topics, broke them into 3 different groups. We had them all go around and read all the people's comments that they had put out there. And then they kind of come back and take this topic and go further with it, look at more themes, or talk about how they could, apply this to their project, or things they want to study more. We usually make sure that one of our staff people are with the group to help facilitate it and kind of help them get from point A to B, or kind of keep peeling that onion back a little bit. So you want to spend some time on this. It's a good 30-40 minute exercise. And then it's at this point where we kind of tell them all, take a coffee break, give us 10 minutes to caucus. Our internal group will come up with some of the highlights from the session. Typically, I take some samples from other ones that we've done, so I have some words right at my fingertips or some phrases. And we literally compile the list and we present it back to the group and to get real-time feedback. Here's an example. This was Jackson County, Missouri, which was a new jail. We did this virtually. And from the virtual kind of vision session, we came up with these 4 big touchstones, and that guided the entire process throughout the project. This is an example from Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, where we came up with several different items, and we used our consultant on board, Link, communications expert. They kind of helped put them in these really nice categories and flowered up the language for us, but it was a nice product at the end of the day. And then at the end of the workshop, we just thank everybody, and we tell them, when we'll be sending something out to them, a date for some deliverable, whether it's a report, or it's a summary, or visual graphics. And typically we do that within, I'd say, about 2 or 3 weeks.